G'day everybody, it's Dave from Wing Chun Mind Force. This is the last video in my series talking about Siu Nim Tau, from reading from Sigung Chu book, the Book of Wing Chun, Volume 1. I'll continue through the book, not just reading every single word, but reading things that I think are the most important. In the end, what I want to see is that you buy these books and research the books for yourself and think about them and discuss them with your Sifu, discuss them with me. I'm always here anytime if you want to write, ask questions. If you have alternate views, I often get people with their own view that they think mine doesn't align with, and we usually have a good conversation and come to some agreement. But most important thing for me is to get you enthusiastic about Wing Chun, to keep you going with your Wing Chun, and to draw you to these books and Sigung's videos as really ultimate references. In the end, all I know is what I've been taught by my teachers, who were taught by Sigung Chu and what I've done with those things I've been taught, what I've experimented with, what I've experienced in myself, and the feedback I've had with friends and more experienced people discussing things. And that's what it's all about. We're like a Wing Chun family. So what I want to read you today is what Sigung says about Siu Nim Tau. It's near the end of the book, a section called, it's on page 318, it's called Characteristics of the Three Form Sets. So we'll come back to this when I've talked about CHU and Bill G. But in this little chapter, Sigung talks about Nim Lik and how it comes from Siu Nim Tau, which in this translation is called Tiny Idea. So just to start off with, tiny idea breeds idea power. So to put into more familiar terms, Siu Nim Tau breeds Nim Lik, mind force, idea power. Siu Nim Tau breeds Nim Lik, the power that connects the different Wing Chun forms to behave as a springy structure, capable of sustaining great forces, yet always poised to bounce back. So it's pretty clear. Siu Nim Tau is about breeding this thing called mind force, this thing called Nim Lik in Chinese and Cantonese. Then he says, put in another way, tiny idea, Siu Nim Tau, is the foundational structure of Wing Chun, based on which variations of forms become possible and can then thrive to the extent that what one performs is what one intends. Now, you could easily gloss over that, to the extent that what one performs is what one intends. Well, you could think, oh, okay, that means I intend to hit somebody, or I intend to make a movement this way or that way or that way or that way. But when he says the word intend, now I can't be absolutely sure because I can't read Chinese, but I would just about bet a lot of money that the word he uses there is yi, which means intention, and which is very important in Chu Shong Tin's Wing Chun concept of yi. So what he's really saying is that the foundation of Wing Chun is to practice this form, Siu Nim Tau, and learn to use your intention, learn to use yi. And I'm going to talk a lot more about yi in videos to come. But essentially, it's being able to put your mind into parts of your body into the opponent's body, into weapons, and move those with no force, just effortlessly, and doing it properly with that sort of focus and concentration. The opponent or the person testing you will feel your whole body weight moving, if with speed, and with the body weight moving with incredible force. So, third paragraph, he says, idea power, Nim Lik, Chi, extraordinary abilities, and internal energy are all generally regarded as unusual powers. Among them, only Nim Lik will be concisely expounded here. The others will not be analysed in this context. So what he's essentially saying is that in China, in traditional thinking, Nim Lik, Chi, and extraordinary abilities, even he mentions supernatural type abilities where people are said to be able to bring an object from a distance and make it reappear here, or magical stuff really, especially to a Western mind it seems like magical stuff. Disclaimer, I'm a pretty open-minded dude, and I don't write off the fact that perhaps these things are possible. Perhaps the Force, lifting X-wings and rocks and all that, perhaps it's possible. Perhaps it's possible to change stormtroopers' minds when they're looking for droids, but practically, yes, I can't prove that, and we don't really need to go into that. That's neither here nor there. But what Sigung's talking about here is a thing that we know is real, which is Nim Lik, the idea power, which is bred by practice of Siu Nim Tau. He goes on, what Nim Lik actually does is to, through the concentration of spirit, cover all parts of the body with consciousness. Everyone is capable of doing so, except that without training, it is hard to concentrate the spirit at one's discretion. Once again, we're into a linguistic problem. What spirit is, my Wing Chun friends from Hong Kong have told me that there's words for spirit, and to my way of thinking, it seems to be consciousness. And Sigung says here, what Nim Lik actually does is, through the concentration of spirit, cover all parts of the body with consciousness. So one representation of spirit is, we say in English, a spirited person, a spirited horse. That's the spirit, like when Deckard hits Roy Batty over the head when he's stuck his head through the wall in Blade Runner, and he says, that's the spirit, and then after that he says, that hurt. So it's spirit. There's all sorts of meanings in English of spirit, but that's the spirit I think it means, is when you sort of, it's like intent. It's sort of, you get the right spirit going. It's sort of, you decide, you fill up with that spirit, you fight back, or you get the drift. So he's saying that what Nim Lik actually does is fill all parts of your body with consciousness. And that's really the experience of Siu Nim Tau, is gradually a feeling of become conscious all parts of your body, the bottom of your feet, top of your head, the back of your neck, your whole spine, the inside of your body, the muscles inside as well as out, your bones. You go through lots of experiences. If you practice regularly and meditatively, you really get a sense of feeling your whole body in a deep way. Next, he says that Siu Nim Tau is the catalyst for attaining the concentration of spirit. If properly trained, one can at any moment channel energy through to all parts of the body. Such concentration will not be disturbed even by abrupt changes in performing different forms. This behaviour, showing the existence of Nim Lik, is the result of practicing Siu Nim Tau. It is possibly how the name Siu Nim Tau was derived. So he's saying that it's this Siu Nim Tau training focuses us to channel energy at any time to all of our body and to parts of our body specifically as needed. And when I get into CHU, I'm going to sort of demonstrate a few things. I'm lining up a partner to put pressure on me, and I'll show you Siu Nim Tau things, and then how CHU uses that Siu Nim Tau concentration of mind, and then takes a concentration of mind into the body to then make a extra massive movement of force. So he's indicating that we just keep that, doesn't matter, right through the form, we keep the same mental concentration, feeling of the whole body, putting the mind in places in the body, we keep that going, we don't turn off. And that's sort of typical when you're new at the art, you sort of switch on and off. But with time goes by, you find that you can keep it. And I often say that to my students, I feel them empty, and I feel the force coming at me, and it's very strong, and then they stop. And I say to them, look, that was really good. You know, you had it. There was mind force. There was Nim Lik happening there, but you're not used to it, so you lost faith in it. You know, you backed off. You didn't keep that same spirit, that same consciousness, the same confidence. You just sort of went, oh, no, I can't do it now, even though they already started to do it. Now, one of my favourite stories, Sigung says, take a simple example. A person drops from a height of, say, 6 feet unprepared. Even if he lands on his feet, he will still inevitably sprain his ankle and collapse onto the ground. On the contrary, if he is prepared before jumping, the feet on landing will have been readied with bouncing ability, which can only be provisioned by remaining forceless, remaining empty. The combined effect of the concentration of spirit, the channeling of its energy, and the relaxation of muscles. This is really interesting. And then he says, this is how idea power, this is how Nim Lik can be generated after practicing Siu Nim Tau and properly capitalizing on the characteristics of muscle. All right, he's talking about a person dropping from 6 feet, and if they realize it's going to happen, what happens is they relax, and their ankles and legs fill up with this bouncy Nim Lik, which is a natural energy. This is what I've been going on about, which I believe I've proved through the readings from Sigung's book. But this is a natural energy we all have. Everybody as a kid has jumped off things. I had a real fetish about it when I was a kid, jumping higher and higher out of trees, and I remember jumping really quite high, you know, maybe 15, 16 feet from a tree onto the ground. And, you know, used to sting my feet, but I remember being able to do it, never broke my leg or anything like that. But he specifically says here, this is how Nim Lik can be generated after practicing tiny idea and properly capitalizing on the characteristics of muscle. So I wanted to tell you about an experience I had where I'd been reading this, this is a couple of years ago, I've been reading this little chapter by Sigung and this whole idea of somebody jumping off a wall, and that was Nim Lik, that protected them from breaking their ankle. And we just moved into a a new house in between coming to this house, and had a very high rock walls, about 8 foot high, and a beautiful view of a forest and fields and a river. And so I stood on the top of this wall, and then suddenly the top rock just rocked. It wasn't, I thought it was concreted on and solid. It rocked forward, and before I knew it, I was going, and there was no way I could stop. And it was weird how fast your mind can think. As I started to jump, you know, and bear in mind that I'm late 50s at the time and hadn't been really jumping out of trees for quite a while, this Sigung story just flashed through my head. And so I just relaxed, and I felt my ankles and my feet empty. The whole body just became springy. I you know, just went to that mind state where you stop consciously thinking. I just felt like an animal, and went boom and hit the ground, did a little roll, and I was up, and no trouble at all. And I literally hadn't jumped off something 3 feet high for many years, and to jump from there was pretty frightening. If you know, if somebody said do it, I would have gone, no, I'm not going to do it. But there wasn't any choice. The rock gave way, and I had to jump. But Sigung's story like literally just flashed through my mind as it happened. So what I'm getting at is that this term Nim Lik, it sounds really magical. And since I started Wing Chun, it's just about 23 years now, this word was always used as a sort of a magical word, like it was this superpower that only Sigung had, and maybe somebody else had it, but no one dared to admit such a thing. So it was always mystified as this sort of like a superpower, and it still is considered like that, but really in the end it's just words. It just means power that comes from the subconscious mind. And through talking to Chinese seniors, to talking to Australian seniors, reading Sigung's book, I've come to the strong conclusion that Nim Lik is not, well, it's sort of a superpower, but it's not a superpower in that it's something we all have. It's in us by nature. We lose it through living a really overly soft, civilized life. I believe people that still live in, you know, wild situations, live in the forest, do a lot of action-packed things in their life. And, you know, people who are riding bulls, like some of my cousins and uncles. These people retain a lot of that because it's sort of a survival thing. But for us, you know, desk-bound city dwellers who watch telly, we've sort of lost it in a lot of ways because we're just not using it. Having said that, it is a superpower when it gets developed consciously over years and years and years of practice. And even though I never met Sigung, I've met other people who have, you know, incredible force, and I've felt things that I haven't really talked to you about, but I will eventually when I get the courage. More freaky sort of chi type things that are very real, but they just come from dedication and long practice, and that's what Sigung says pretty clearly in his book as well, that, you know, it's acceptable to think that the amount of practice and the dedication is how much mind force, how much Nim Lik you have. And another big theme of mine is nature, is the power of nature. And Bruce Lee was really interested in all this stuff, and there was a book called Zen and the Art of Archery by Eugene Herrigel that he read thoroughly, and I've read it thoroughly myself, and I was quite pleased when I discovered Bruce had been into it. And it's about this young German guy who learns the art of Japanese archery, which is Kyodo. And the old master says to him at one stage, "You think if you don't do it, nothing can happen." And what he's saying to him is that, you know, you think that unless you consciously do it, it can't happen. And he teaches him that there's another mind much greater than the ordinary conscious mind that that helps us out. And that's what we're doing in Wing Chun for sure, where we're learning to let go, stop trying to control, stop trying to be strong, empty out, and let this Nim Lik come through us and discover it and learn to use it and learn to use Yi, which releases Nim Lik by putting your mind into parts of your body. And I just want to finish off showing you something. This is a zucchini, believe it or not. Now, it's called a trombone. It's an Italian heirloom zucchini that I've been growing. And most of the ones I grow are about that long, and they're just little skinny things, and I thought that's pretty much what they were. And this one was growing underneath my big pumpkin vine, so I didn't really notice it until it got quite big, and then my wife said, well, why don't you let that thing grow? So we picked it today. It probably could have got a bit bigger, but this seems to be terminal velocity. But isn't that an amazing thing? Now, you wouldn't think a zucchini could get like that, but that's nature. Nature is incredibly powerful, and one thing I learned at art school was that all creatures, not zucchinis, but all animals have the same bone structure as I do, the same muscles, like really literally the same muscles and the same bones. So the whale that can dive for hours to the bottom of the sea, the monkey that can climb the top of a 200-foot tree and jump around fearlessly, the mighty gorilla, the lion, the tiger, all these creatures have the same bodies as us. They're sort of variations of us. And to me, that's where this power comes from. It's the wild power of nature. And we civilized people can learn how to tap into that power, which is pretty cool. I wish I'd been able to learn this when I was younger. I wish I could have learned this when I was like 15. But I'm not dead yet. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Thanks so much for coming and watching my video as usual. Next video, I'm going to get into CHU and some of the exciting ideas and practices in CHU that you can use straight away to improve your Wing Chun Kung Fu. Thank you. Bye-bye.